Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome COO Shiji Group, Kevin King, in discussion with Skift Travel Tech Editor Sean O'Neill.
So Shiji is the most fascinating hotel tech company in the world right now. It's been around for 20 years in China, but in 2017, Alibaba Group, the e-commerce giant, made an investment of about $480 million, and that helped Shiji start an acquisition spree for a westward-facing development. And the company now serves more than 47,000 hotels outside of China. It has more than 20 subsidiaries. And here to tell us more about Shiji is Chief Commercial Officer Kevin King. Thank you so much, Kevin, for being here.
Thank you.
This is the first time that you've been on stage at a travel event in the Americas, so we're grateful that you came to Skift. In the past 12 months, your group has been very busy. You acquired or had a majority investment in Ice Portal, in Concept Systems, in Stay in Touch, you took to another level. So what people in the audience might like to know is who you're going to buy next.
Good question. We do have a number of different companies that we look at. Okay. As you said, we do have a plethora of different technology companies that provide our customers today technologies. One of the key areas that we do as an organization is to look, listen, and learn. And looking and listening and learning from our customer base really defines who we target to acquire. We talked earlier, one of the speakers talked earlier about building or buying, and that's something that we look at very clearly as well. We need to really define whether we buy something that is already technology that's there and being used in market, or has potential to be growing in market, or whether we build, because we have the wherewithal to also build. And we do build a lot of our own technology, some that you see today in market and others that you don't yet see in market.
So setting aside whether you build or you buy it, how happy are you with what is in the Shiji Group portfolio right now? Because obviously you do partner, you have a lot of integrations, and we'll talk about the integrations in a second. But in terms of, do you feel like you've pretty much filled out what you want to have under the Shiji Group umbrella?
I think we have a good base of product and services in the portfolio at the moment. We have enough that actually creates noise in market. We have enough that allows us to be looked at on a serious level, from independent hotels to regional group to global group, that gets us in the door. That gets us in the door to sit down and have a serious conversation as to what does a hotel group want to do, what does a market want to do, and how we can contribute to that market. It's important to us to have a base of technology that we can contribute back immediately, but at the same time contribute back for what they want to do next.
Okay. We talked earlier when we were talking with Oracle Hospitality and with other people that it's very important to have an API-first approach to the market to try to partner. There's a lot of startups, they want to have connectivity with other partners. What's Shiji's approach on that?
Yeah, I think what Laura said was right, that it is all about the connectivity. It's all about having API first. Not only API first, not only the cloud structure, but also the event-driven architecture as well, being able to notify people when certain things happen within their establishments, be it in the PMS world, be it in the front office operations, or be it in the gaming operation, or be it in the restaurant operations, and so forth. So it's not just about, let's not just look about the PMS and what's happening in the front office operation, but look about the guest journey from where they enter and what the hotels and the hotel groups has as a service-oriented layer that they want the hotel guest to use and utilize. So it's about having the ability to cross over into all those platforms and technologies. So there you need to be able to have that event organization as well, that I've arrived, and here's what I can do, and here's how you message back to me. So being able to build technology that can connect, build technologies that can communicate back into the guest environment is very, very important across the various different business industry.
Okay. You mentioned that you've been getting a lot of attention, and I noticed that last week when I was at the high-tech hospitality tech vendor show in Minneapolis. It was your first year of Shiji Group having a big stand there as big as this thing, and it was mobbed the entire couple of days that we were there.
Very good investment.
Not everyone who came up to the stand, I'm willing to bet, bought. So when you get objections from customers or when they don't buy, what are some of the typical things you have to overcome?
I think a lot of the, not necessarily objection, it's really curiosity. What are we doing? We bought all these companies and we have all these different products and so forth. But what is really our strategy? There's something ready to drop. What is that's ready to drop? And that's a possibility. But that may be a possibility for another discussion in another.
Well, well, what is it? What's next? What's happening? What's going to drop?
Well, I can't disclose what's going to drop, but there are certain areas in travel technologies that we're working with big partners to contribute back into the industry, both into the hospitality industry and wider afield into more the distribution space.
Okay. Yeah. We heard earlier today from Stephanie from Marriott International, and she said that security compliance is an important thing that's top of mind. How does Shiji approach the security issue?
Being an organization that is new in market, really, on an international base, a lot of our technologies that we have either acquired or built, we were fortunate to create that foundation. Very strong. And one element of that was the very first thing that we did was put a security organization together, an internal security organization together that polices us as an organization, and then anybody that connects into us is also policed as far as the data security that we have. We talked about GDPR and the privacy and so forth. Most of our solutions that we have acquired go through a GDPR process, go through a security process, and all the new technology that we build is built from that perspective up.
Okay. The Economist magazine a couple months ago had a special report, a 16-page report about China versus the U.S. and how there's kind of a soft Cold War, and that some U.S. officials are warning American companies to be careful about using Chinese-based tech providers. Do you feel like that's a potential headwind for Shiji, or?
There may be some noise in market about that. So far, we've not experienced any barriers of working with people. I suppose one of the reasons for that is that a very big market is China. And as Stephanie said this morning, that the growth for Marriott is in China, from the Bonvoy membership environments and so forth, the growth in hotels, as with many other large hotel groups and even smaller hotel groups wanting to enter into the Chinese space. So partnering with companies that are in China, partnering with companies that have the depth and the knowledge and the ability to deliver in a very different land, it becomes a positive. Yeah, so I don't think we see too much negativity at this time.
That makes sense. You mentioned startups and connectivity and partnering, so we'll have a startup pitch event at lunchtime. A lot of startups are interested in partnering. They may be developing parallel services to what Shiji Group has, or they may have something that's adjacent. What is your approach in terms of partnering with them in terms of the commercials? So, for example, you might want to have attractive fees, etc.
Let me go back to what Ms. Wong, your researcher, said this morning, and she brought up a great slide that showed all of the various different touch points that are of technology that is in hotels today. If I take that slide and then I look and I overlay what we have from a point of view of Shiji and the technologies that Shiji have, we have a good 70% what's already on that slide, and that's by purpose. We looked, we listened, we learned when we first came international to really identify what does market need, and we then targeted that. We targeted that by looking at startups. We targeted that by really looking at the various companies that were trying to get into our customer, and some of them we acquired, but some of them we do partner with. And one of our biggest, and I use the word a lot, one of our biggest strategy is to really contribute back into the industry. And if you're going to contribute back into the industry, you need to be very open. You may have technology that you can provide to the customer, but you need to be very open to allow others to connect into the platforms that we have, the platforms and the ecosystems that we have. So we love to work with startups. A lot of innovation comes from startups. A lot of ideas come from them. And if they're really good, like stay in touch, if they're really good at what they do, and we put a little bit of investment in to begin with, and then later we ultimately end up acquiring them, then that's great for us, it's great for the startup, but it's great for the industry.
So I'd like to call for a slide. So Skift Research, you mentioned Ms. Wong. They've been talking to a lot of hotel leaders to find out what's on their mind. And one question was, what tech categories do you think the hospitality industry does well? So Kevin, the results were that guest-facing tech was something that got high marks, but things like revenue management and marketing automation didn't. I guess I'd ask, what do you feel what tech do you feel that the hospitality industry does well at?
Let me just address the guest-facing technology.
Please.
I think that is getting better. I don't think, and I listen to what everybody is saying here at this event, but also directly to customer. Guest-facing technology is relatively new towards the hotel industry. So anything is better than what it was yesterday, right? Whereas revenue management systems and the like have been there for a long time, and they're struggling with revenue management systems because there's so many different channels that are coming in. So how do you control your revenue management system? There was also discussions about social. There was also discussions about reputation management and so forth. Listening to what the customer is saying and adapting to what the customer wants, rather than looking at statistical data of what happened last year or the last 5 years and try and figure out what a rate is. Listen to what the customer wants today and utilize the technology that's available to you to let systems make that decision for you. So the connectivity of different systems will enhance what doesn't replace revenue management, but it enhances revenue management in different ways.
Okay. You've mentioned a few times the phrase listening to the customer. That's clearly something that you and the CEO of Shiji, it's important to you. As a journalist, we hear customer first a lot from a lot of companies. It's a bit of a cliche. Is there some sort of example to bring to life how Shiji approaches this?
Yeah. Shiji in China, as you mentioned, is a company that is 20 years old. We started from very, very humble beginnings and partnered with companies along the way, built our own products within China, learned from China and learned very much on the growing Chinese marketplace, which was really all about guest. Right? It's all about the consumer and the interaction with consumers. So when we then started to go internationally, we selected just a few customers to learn from, to look at them, to learn from them, and listen to what their requirements were, and then be able to identify to build around that. So one of the areas that one of our foundational things is to really listen and be able to have product that we can deliver so that we can do that modeling and that testing together with the customer. And some of it works, some of it doesn't. Some we keep, some we don't, and other entities will come in to actually be part of the cooperation between customer and Shiji. So.
Are there any sort of reference customers, brands that you've worked with would kind of like illustrate that point?
Yeah. So if I take, let's take Hyatt as an example, the Hyatt Group as an example. We were very successful in touching Hyatt, and we had an opportunity in China for one of our products. We went into Hyatt, we sat down at the corporate level, we listened to what their expectations were, and not only were able to show them what we had today, but how quickly we were able to adopt and adapt to what their global strategy was. In certain areas of consumer touch points, as well as inside technologies within the group. And ultimately, we were successful in winning bids with Hyatt, specifically on our food and beverage point of sale solutions.
Okay. So when John Padgett from Carnival was talking about the medallion and Internet of Things earlier, one point he said is that they had to rethink a lot of the whole back-end systems, and a lot of their approach had been in a room-specific. The room on the berth on a cruise ship was the center. And in a lot of hotel tech systems, the room has been the center of the property management system. Do you see a change or a shift in the gravity entirety of the hotel tech stack, and where is it going?
Yeah, I think that John was right in the way that he was saying, but he also has a very captive audience in looking after that journey that they go on, and very much a direct market rather than in more of a distributed market. So he has done an amazing job, by the sound of it, in putting all that technology stack together and being able to offer that on board ships. When you look at global hospitality and the technology that comes in global hospitality, you've got to then take that off a closed environment and then put it around the world. And really then you have a lot more technology challenges that need to be captured for that. Legal, fiscal, GDPR is one thing, to carry it around the world. It's not about the PMS.
The PMS is the property management
as a property management system. It's not about that. We shouldn't really be looking at property management systems anymore, because those property management systems are all going to the cloud. So when they're in the cloud, they become components of what the itinerary of the guest is. And we heard that also talked about in terms of it's segmenting the guest and what the guest needs in a hotel. And that could be, well, they may only touch your hotel, but they may also touch your restaurant. So it's attaching that one single guest profile and being able to work with that guest across all of it. Prior to staying, in stay, post stay, return stay.
When we talk to hotel executives, a lot of them are a bit terrified right now when private about this monumental decision. It's like the entire tech stack has to be rethought in certain ways. There's a concern that, you can't just make one decision, but you need to really rethink the whole thing. So what kind of advice do you give to hotel CIOs, CTOs as they think about how they need to be, where the ball is going to be in the future?
Stop and think and plan. And it doesn't all have to be done tomorrow. You have to really, really think it out. And this is one thing I've learned in talking to a lot of the large organizations, that everybody has these monolithic old solutions and systems, and they're very loosely coupled together, right? But all revolve around the loyalty of a guest. Very important. So it is really not, it's a journey, it's not a sprint. You have to really think it through, and you need to put in what is going to be security conscious first, and then from security then start to build out what that next step is. On the journey of doing that, you still need to address and be competitive to your competitor in play. So there will be some short-term tactical approaches, but then the strategic one, it will come a little bit further down the track. So not everything has to be done immediately, especially in the very large groups. You have to really sort of pace it out.
Which is a bigger problem, friction points and connectivity with integration, or the quality of data that is being shared back and forth?
More the friction of the connectivity.
And what is Shiji trying to do?
Because the quality of the data in the back end, in the most case, is not quality.
It's not what?
It's not quality.
Okay.
There's a lot of data. We've heard that here, but really it's not actionable data now.
I see.
We heard one speaker talk about big data, and he's not a fan of big data. I agree. We have a lot of big data, but we need to shrink that data to be small data. Then when you have small data, when it's not necessarily science, but when it's rationalized, you then have the ability to act upon that data. Okay, so being able to take that big data, rationalize it, act upon that. That's largely what we do in what we do on our data strategy. When we first came out of China in 2014 to go international, we began a company called Snapshot. And Snapshot as an organization was partnered with STR, actually invested by STR and another small hotel group in...
So STR is the benchmarking service that helps hotels keep track of rates.
Yeah. And a small hotel group in Europe called Citizen M. So we had a lot of information from Data Insights, from a very well-known industry-led
So Citizen M is the hotel, Snapshot is providing an analytics dashboard.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we were able to look at that data, be able to take huge amounts of volume of data across multiple different systems, PMS systems to review systems to revenue management systems and so forth, then shrink that data to be actionable data and then provide that back into the hotel.
Okay.
Or the group.
Snapshot is not as central to your group now, right?
It evolves. Okay. So it's very critical to the overall data strategies of Shiji, because as you build out all the various different companies that we have and the partners that we partner with, we have to put that data somewhere that we can then do the analytics upon. So Snapshot really does form that data platform for us. And then we have great teams of people that can analyze that data, visualize that data. Again, part of looking, listening, learning, and then adapting.
How likely is it that you'll do more M&A between now and this time next year?
Yes, we are still looking for what is the right technology for market. We will not stop looking. Okay. We will listen to our customers and we'll look at what's the trend, and we'll. Okay.
Fantastic. So we have some audience questions. Kevin, what part of the hotel stack do you see as the most opportunity for growth for startups?
I'd say more in the guest-facing technologies. I'm really, and that is a different tech stack, if you like, to what it is within the core of the hospitality technology. It's a very, very different tech stack, very different tech stack, because you're going across multiple different systems.
Okay. Given how quickly hotel tech is changing, do you worry you've inherited a lot of older tech debt through companies you've purchased?
Yes. And it's not unusual. A lot of people that are in the room today, not everything you buy is immediately consumable. But you buy based upon strategy. You don't necessarily have to buy based upon the technology that's there today. We have some technology that's very old. It has to be retired, right? But the people that we have, the inherent knowledge that we have within the organization, the foundation of the technology needs to change, but we have the ability and we have the funding to enable that change.
How do you handle having had an incredible metabolism of ingesting all these acquisitions? How have you been able to do all these integrations?
Well, it's like herding cats sometimes. You have all these different founders that you have come in, and the different people have different ideas and different strategies and different ways and the like. But it is a challenge sometimes to sort of get everybody on the same page and put that, get everybody following the same leadership environment. But for the most part, we're very successful at that. We have the ability to do so. We have the people within the organization to shepherd the people along, and the technology.
So Nani Mouse would like to know whether you'd like to buy their company. In your opinion, which legacy systems are prevalent in large travel brands? Customer relationship management system, a revenue management system, a CMS, should be modernized first versus last?
I think that the most one the leading one that needs to really have a lot of focus is where you're holding your guest data. Right? Because everybody's talking about how we're going to have this single guest profile and how we can attribute what the guest is doing from an itinerary point of view back to one. Because today, me as a guest, I'm in many different systems across one hotel group, for example. I think we calculated about between 10 and 12 systems before I even get to make a reservation. So it's got to go and check all this stuff. So you really need to sort of consolidate about the guest, because that's who you're targeting. You've got more product, you've got more opportunity to provide better things towards that guest.
Okay. There are many travel brands here today are thinking about breaking into the China market. What does expansion mean to Shiji?
In China? Mm-hmm. Well, we are rooted in China. We are a Chinese organization, and we're very proud to be so. And we learn from that market. We have many different technologies within the Chinese market that we provide to customer. And you heard what Stephanie said this morning about how Marriott is growing quite aggressively. Not only Marriott, but many other groups are growing quite aggressively in the market of China. So our growth will continue in China, but not only within the hospitality space. We have retail, we have food service, and other hardware divisions that we grow in China.
So just to flag here, last year you rebranded China Online, and you now have a Shiji distribution portal, and you've signed a couple of big brands. A couple of big brands are using you to access companies like C-Trip, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Distribution to us is very important, and Expedia was on stage, and not only Expedia but many other distribution channels as well that we partner with. We created China Online, what we called China Online, in 2014, and that was really at a time in China where the distribution channels were really very green, very young. There wasn't really many that were there, so we created a switch. And that switch we called China Online. And from that, we were able to build out many different channels. We have over 75 channels in China that we can actually switch through to either central reservation systems or to the other distribution channels outside of China. Then as we started to grow outside of China, the word of, or the branding of China is positive, but it's also can be it can be more limiting in terms of its branding. So we decided to rename and rebrand to be Shiji Distribution Systems, because we actually formed bigger, better partnerships with that global customer that wanted to have access to the channels in China. And by doing so, one such customer was Wyndham, whereby we provide that connectivity for Wyndham through to the C-Trip platform. But one thing I'll also mention from that perspective is that Stephanie mentioned this morning about Marriott and the Marriott Alibaba joint venture that is in place today. All of the technology from Alibaba connectivity of AliTrip at the time, which is now called Figly, actually is going through Shiji Distribution in order to connect through to all of the Marriott properties. So we power that connectivity through to all of the Marriott properties around the world via Shiji, including the development of what you've referred to as post-pay, which is the whole payment element.
Well, that's cool. That's a nice through line. We're going to end on that point. Thank you very much, Kevin, for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers.